Good evening, friends. Welcome to another late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. You know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective. And if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we have a tragic case. A podcaster from the state of Washington, a young couple, 33 and 35, were found shot to death by a stalker, an online stalker. And this podcaster, this young female wife, again, reported and did everything that she could do to try to make herself safe. We're going to get into it in a few minutes, but I want to say a special thank you to you, the subscribers, the Patreon supporters, the replay viewers, the channel members, everybody who comes in. This is a community where we exchange information. And tonight we're going to talk and have a conversation about online safety and how to keep yourself safe when you're not only just communicating or doing podcasting like this, doing live streaming, even just surfing the internet on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram and TikTok and so forth. There's a lot of dangers out there. And this case tonight is going to show you in no uncertain terms just how dangerous it is. So I'm going to show just a little piece for you guys. This happened Friday morning, around 2 a.m., Thursday night into Friday morning, I believe, in the state of Washington, across the United States, on the other side, on the West Coast, in a area called Redmond. This was a Redmond Police Department case. So let me just quickly show you a little bit of media here. This way you guys can see and understand what I'm going to talk to you about. This is just going to be about 30 minutes. It's not going to be a long live stream, but listen in. And if you suffer from any type of PTSD or anything like that, hey, Jennifer, good to see you. This might not be another one for you guys. This is a tough one.
Now from Fox, and I want to get back to a story that we brought you as breaking news just yesterday. We checked in with our Fox 13 Seattle team to get the latest information. We now know that 3 people are dead after a suspected stalker broke into a Redmond, Washington home and killed a podcaster and her husband. That information from police. The woman's mother survived the attack, escaped, and called 911. The shooting happening at a home on 166th Street Northeast and Northeast 89th Street, if you are familiar with the area, on Friday morning, very early, about 2 a.m. According to Redmond police, officers responded after a woman called 911 at a neighbor's home to report a stalking situation. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a 35-year-old man who lived at the home in the front yard, and he had been fatally shot in the chest. When officers entered that home, they found the man's 33-year-old wife and that suspected stalker both dead after being shot. I do want to play for you our Fox 13 Seattle team's latest story that breaks down the information we have so far.
In the first homicide in the city of Redmond since 2021, a crazed stalker obsessed with a woman killed her and her husband before turning the gun on himself.
This is the absolute worst outcome, for a stalking case.
Police Chief Darrell Lowe says this man, 38-year-old Ramin from Texas, is the suspect. He came to the neighborhood in this red truck Tuesday overnight.
The suspect broke into the home via a bedroom window, that bedroom being the mother's. She did encounter the suspect. She was aware of what was occurring, and she knew or realized that she needed to get out and get help.
Police say the mother of the wife ran for her life to a neighbor's house to call 911. When officers arrived, the mother and neighbor led them to the home.
As officers approached the front of the home, a male later identified as the husband of the victim was seen in a doorway. As officer tried to communicate with him, he collapsed and became unresponsive. Officers evacuated him from the front of the house and realized that he had been shot.
First responders performed CPR, trying to save his life, but he soon died. During the investigation, officers found the man's wife shot in the master bedroom, Ramin dead from shooting himself. The petition for a protection order, filed on March 3rd, says Ramin would leave the woman voicemails more than 10 times a week, sending gifts and flowers to her home, even saying he hired a jazz band to play outside her house for 2 hours, but then called it off. The documents say the suspect would also leave her husband 20 messages a day. He even found her friends' addresses and phone numbers without their permission. Chief Lowe says a restraining order was officially filed with the city's prosecuting attorney's office, with a hearing scheduled for March 17th.
A restraining order is simply a piece of paper that allows officers to take enforcement action should a suspect violate the court order, but a piece of paper does not protect a person when someone is intent on causing them harm.
Chief Lowe says it was challenging serving the order to Ramin because he was a long-haul truck driver, always traveling the country for work.
It was difficult to, I'll say, pin him down to a location. It wasn't as though he was local and we had a local address to where we could either do surveillance or find him, serve the protective order, etc. He was in a different state, traveled across the country as part of his employment. So that was the biggest challenge.
Chief Lowe says the woman and her family worked very closely with detectives since becoming aware of the crazed stalking situation in December 2022, even adding extra surveillance cameras to the home.
In this case, the victim did everything that they possibly could. Unfortunately, this person, broke into their home and killed her. And it is a tragic event.
Frankie Thompson, Fox 13 News.
Thank you so much to our Fox 13 Seattle team for breaking down the very disturbing details that we have learned here. You heard that according to the protection order against that shooter, the woman met him in June of last year, and the constant and harassing messages and calls started shortly after that. The order does claim that he would leave several messages a day and a week and would contact friends of the woman. He also was able to obtain her address and the addresses of her friends, despite never being told about them. Several times he threatened to burn himself, they say, outside of her home if she didn't see him.
Guys, I'll get into all the particulars after the media piece is over. I'll tell you about what her podcast was and what she did. And we'll go into all the details. But just I want you guys to, if you can, just listen up and you'll have a pretty good overview of what happened here.
So this brings up a very important topic here. What should you do if you're a victim of stalking? Our Fox 13 Seattle team takes a deep dive into why you should never just ignore it and hope it goes away.
And that means if you feel that something is not right, ask for help. Ignoring it and hoping that it fades away will not work in stalking situations. Confronting a stalker early could potentially save your life.
What's happening with that other person's behavior that's making you feel this way? Why is it inappropriate? Most of the time, we have fear when somebody has violated a social norm.
These are the questions Cheryl Michaels wants you to ask yourself if you think you're dealing with a stalker. She's the director of safety and security at Seattle Pacific University. Michaels says if you find yourself trying to talk yourself out of believing in your gut feeling, consider that a red flag on its own.
The trauma, the fear of what could happen really is a strong motivator to how we respond to it. And often it's to try to ignore it, make it go away. Ignore our feelings, our intuition that is telling us something's wrong here and we need to act.
That act should be reaching out to friends and family, or if it escalates, calling law enforcement. Stalking, by definition, is repeated unwanted attempts at communication, contact, or even harassment.
And the worst thing we can do is ignore our gut feeling that says, don't answer that call. And after 30 attempts, we're like, okay, if I just answer this phone call after 30 times, then maybe they'll stop. And all that's done is taught the person who's obsessed that all they have to do is be persistent for 30 times. And then eventually they'll get to make that connection.
Michael says once you make a decision not to engage, you need to stick with it. Consistency is crucial with people who display obsessive behavior. If they continue to pursue contact, keep a record of what they're saying, because that often is what makes the contact a crime.
With stalking and the law that's written for stalking, it has to be something that has more criminal intent involved, like threats to damage your property, threats to harm you or a friend. It can't just be the mere phone call or text message, because then we just have harassment.
According to the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 6 men have been stalked at some point in their lives. Here in King County, we do not have information for 2022 yet, but the latest data available shows that there were 20 civil protection orders issued for stalking in 2021. That is up from just 10 issued in 2020. In the newsroom, Nikki Torres, Fox.
So this is good, valid information that you had there, and some of the things that they spoke about is very true. You know, ignoring a stalker that is sending you threatening information and threatening messages is not always a good thing to do. But I want to just tell you quickly, our 2 victims here, the husband and wife, 33 and 35 years old. The wife did podcasting, which would related to tech and how to get tech jobs for folks from her country. Now, I don't know the exact country that she came from, or it. There's a little bit of kind of wishy-washy information in that area, but I'll say in 2021 she met this stalker in an online chat room, and then she made the fatal mistake of actually meeting this person in the summer of 2022 in person. And I say this to everybody who's online, and especially content creators and podcasters. If you're a female or a male and you decide to meet somebody, it's always a roll of the dice. You don't know what the person's past is. You don't know what could develop from that engagement. And it's clear and apparent here that when she met him over the summer in 2022 in person, his infatuation for her was amplified. And in the King County Court on March 3rd, this defendant was charged with 1 count of a misdemeanor stalking and 2 counts of telephone harassment, aggravated harassment. But those charges, because he was out of state, they were never able to actually issue him the charges. They weren't able to get him. The judge saw there was probable cause to issue these arrest warrants, and they were never executed. And I think the next court date for this was March 17th, St. Patty's Day. So again, when you go and interact with people online, it's always a roll of the dice. And look, you know, getting a firearm in America legally is a process. And I always suggest to male and female friends when they ask me, DutyRon, what should I carry for personal protection? And I always say mace, something that can make some noise, take a self-defense class, and also, if you can, get a conceal and carry permit, and arming yourself and being proficient with a firearm. Like I said, I'm a retired detective, so I carry my gun everywhere I go, because I legally can. But it's not the answer to it all. This person came to her home, knew where she lived, and broke in through a bedroom window and shot her husband, killed her husband, and then shot her and then killed himself. So a very, very unfortunate situation. I'm going to play a little piece from Newsnation. I think this was a pretty decent piece. But before I play the Newsnation, I want to go to local news, because the local news has covered it pretty good. So I want to just play a small piece from
3
the
people are
news.
dead in what police say started as.
Give me 2 seconds. You know, DutyRon, sometimes I have a little technical struggles, but I always work through them. This is a very sad situation. 33 years young and 35 years young. Husband and wife, they didn't deserve this. Her mother lived there, or his mother lived in that home. She heard the commotion, ran out of the house, and was able to go to the neighbor's house. So the mom survived. And I'm not sure if it's her mom or his mom, but she was able to get out, call 911, and she survived. But now she's one of the victims that are left behind. to grieve the loss of these two. Really a terrible situation. Let's listen into local coverage from Como.
Say started as a stalking case. Detectives say a suspected stalker broke into a home in Redmond's Bella Bottega area. Como's Hannah Knowles reports one of the victims had a no-contact restraining order against the gunman.
3 people now dead, a husband and wife, and the man who pulled the trigger. Redmond police say the wife ran a podcast, and that's how her alleged stalker knew her.
We may never know why somebody would do this.
On a quiet residential street in Redmond, gunfire erupts overnight. 3 people now dead after a potential stalker breaks into this home.
They said that he was stalking her, so there has certainly been a history.
Yeah, just a terrible situation. And like I said, she met him, I think on the app Rumble. I don't know much about it, but there was an app Rumble where there was just conversation. And they were in a chat room that catered to trying to like helping people. I'm not going to say it right. I'm gonna mispronounce this, but it's Farsi, Farsi speakers, Farsi speakers. So she met him on the app for Farsi speakers, and then she started her podcast, and then he followed her on the podcast after meeting her on that Rumble app. At least that's one of the reports that I read. There's so much information reporting here. Some of it may be good, some of it may not be bad. So Farsi is Iranian. Thank you for that, Jade. I knew somebody would help right away with that. So I'm assuming that she's has ties back to Iran, but that's where she met this murderer, and he wound up taking the coward's way out, and he shot himself, as we heard in these news reports.
Redmond police say the shooter is a 38-year-old truck driver from Texas. He had a no-contact order filed against him from the woman living here.
This is just a tragic situation that we don't often see that in Redmond.
Her mom was the one who called 911. She managed to escape and run for help.
He had an altercation with the mother. Sounds like he shoved her, and then she was able to escape to the neighbors.
Her 35-year-old husband, shot in the chest, found dead on the front lawn.
And this is just a really unfortunate event that happened, and I'm not sure what could make someone do that, to be honest.
As for the extent of the relationship between the suspect and the wife, police say it started after he discovered her podcast. We don't know if they ever met in person, but Redmond police say this is a good reminder that you never know who you're connecting with online. In Redmond.
So this is what I'm saying. I listened to and read 2 reports saying that they did meet in person, that they met in person in the summer of 2022. So.
Hannah Knowles, Como News.
When it comes to protection orders in King County, state law allows you to ask a judge to grant an order to protect you from another person. A protection order means that person is not allowed to contact you in any way. If a person violates the order, police say you should call 911 immediately. You would need to show officers your certified copy of that protection order when they arrive. Then police might arrest the person for violating it, but an arrest is not a sure thing.
So there you have it, folks. That's some of the local coverage. Phil Grimaldi, good to see you. Thank you for joining. I'm not sure, this is a story that broke early yesterday and last night. I didn't have a chance to cover it. I knew of it. I was aware of it last night, but I figured it's late and I had a couple of minutes. I wanted to come live with you guys. David Osaka, good to see you. Thanks for joining. This is just a tragedy all around. And like I said, some of the reporting is spotty. It's here and there. I'm going to show you some documents, and we're going to look at some stuff. But let me just play a little piece from Newsnation because they covered this as well. So I'm going to go to Newsnation and give you guys a little bit of a piece from this.
I want to bring in now former FBI agent and CIA officer Tracy Walder. Tracy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
And what a terrible story. And I think, Tracy, one of the things that is so striking here is that Sadeghi seemed to do everything right. She kept copious records of all of this. She reported it to police, actively obtaining that no contact restraining order. Why was it all ultimately not enough to prevent these murders?
So, Natasha, you're absolutely correct. I believe she did really everything right. She filed that no contact order. And while I do understand that it was probably difficult to serve as you're crossing state lines since he's a long haul trucker, she really had done an incredible job of documenting all of these attempts by him to basically harass her. But I think, to put it very bluntly, the problem is a restraining order, protective order, those kinds of things. Those are a piece of paper, and then they do allow police a broad range to be able to actually act if those are violated, if those orders are violated. But the reality is someone who is bent on doing something like this does not necessarily care about that piece of paper. And I think that that's what happened here.
Yeah, and police saying that the nature of his job, him being a long distance trucker, made it very difficult for them to surveil him, to find him, to serve that protection order. What is your read on this? Could police have done more here?
You know, I think that that's an excellent question, and I've been thinking about that. I think of short of involving the FBI, who typically does not become involved in domestic violence kind of cases and stalking cases, I'm not certain how much more they could have done. In terms of surveilling him and those kinds of things, that would have taken notifying other police departments and knowing his trucking schedule. One of the things they could have done was gone to his employer, the trucking company that hired him, and found out what his schedule was. But they would need a warrant to be able to do that. And I'm not certain that that warrant was ever applied for.
So I have some documents and some stuff that would say that there was court findings. There are court filings in this case. This woman did everything that she had to do to make the reports. She went to the local police. She kept screenshots. I'm going to show you a text string from this perpetrator who killed himself and wound up killing her and her husband. He sent in excess of 100 messages a day to her husband and to her. So he had both of their information, and he knew where they lived. And as we know, an order of protection, a piece of paper, an order of protection, and I've said this many times on my podcast and on my YouTube channel, is in my police professional career, I've taken order of protections out of lifeless bodies one too many times. Order of protections don't do shit. It doesn't. No perp, no bad guy or girl is going to abide by an order of protection if they are a true, stalker, hell bent on doing something, nefarious. That piece of paper, you're not going to rip it out and say, "Oh, I got this order of protection. It's going to save me." So you need to protect yourself. And they took a lot of measures, putting security cameras in. They were hypersensitive to what this guy was doing. He broke into their home through a back bedroom window and at 2:00 in the morning and caught them by surprise. So, again, we could Monday morning quarterback this thing up and down, but the bottom line is we have to try to learn from this. Thank you, Sharon Creates, for being here. Thank you for engaging. We need to learn from these mistakes, and anybody and everyone. And this is not just for me. It's for the people who engage in social media. If you are DMing back and forth on, and I know a lot of you guys do this because you guys communicate with me. If you're DMing with somebody on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the platform is, and you don't know exactly 100% who that person is, you have to be careful about your personal information. One of the reasons I started on YouTube and used my police nickname, DutyRon, was to protect my identity. right? Now, I kind of share it here and there with you guys, but, I use that for the protection of myself and my family. I have 17 cameras around my home. Like my neighbors always joke with me, they just subtle, funny jokes like, why do you got so many cameras? I have every angle of every part of my property. You can't walk on it without being put on camera. But I'm not stupid. I know that those cameras are a deterrent, but they're not going to stop somebody if they want to do something bad. So you need to have a plan of action. You need to know what you're going to do if someone intrudes or breaks into your home. If you have self-defense at home, it needs to be readily available, So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about here tonight. So let me let the rest of this report play.
It was, and they received it, his employer, the trucking company that hired him, and found out what his schedule was. But they would need a warrant to be able to do that. And I'm not certain that that warrant was ever applied for. If it was and they received it, then that could have been a potential gold mine for them to be able to stop this.
And reports indicate that the attacker leaves behind a 7-year-old daughter and ex-wife, and that there is a history of domestic violence with that ex-wife as well.
Shocker.
How common is it for violence against women to be a pattern, to be habitual? And was that a red flag that should have been acted on before something like this happened?
So the reality is it depends. It depends on what his ex-wife had done to document the abuse that she suffered at his hands. I'm not surprised that he engaged in that kind of behavior, but I think that the reality is if that was not documented, that may not have been followed up on. I mean, look, we know about 13.
So look at these figures. About 1 in 6 women and 1 in 17 men have experienced stalking in their lifetimes. Now, I got to say, and I don't like to jinx myself or anything like that, but I've been doing this for quite a bit of a time, and I've never had not one instance where I felt like it was a full out stalking. Yes, I receive harsh messages from people that don't like some of the things that I say. That's okay. But I've never had a situation where what these people went through was hundreds of messages on a daily basis. And that's a lot of messages. So that had been very concerning to them, and they had to have big time have been on the watch. They have to be. There's no way that they weren't, hypersensitive, hyper aware of what their surroundings are based on this communication alone. So look, Phil Grimaldi's in the chat, retired NYPD detective. Ron, don't laugh, but I had a stalker years ago. No bull. Wow, interesting. I'd like to hear that story one time, Phil. And thank you for being here, brother.
13.5 women in the United States are stalked every single year, and only about 20% of those that unfortunately are killed by their stalkers have these protective orders, and that may not have been followed up on. I mean, look, we know about 13.5 women in the United States are stalked every single year, and only about 20% of those that unfortunately are killed by their stalkers have these protective orders, and so it really depends on what documentation was filed.
And I want to speak to these statistics we're looking at. I mean, stalking cases not uncommon. We were just seeing 1 in 6 women have experienced this. 1 in 17 men have experienced stalking in their lifetimes. I know both you and I know what it's like to receive unwanted, persistent messages from strangers. So let's say that this does escalate to the point where you feel you need to notify police, but you still feel unsafe. Maybe you get a piece of paper, but ultimately that is not going to protect you. Is there any recourse here? What more can an individual do to stay safe?
So thank you for asking that question, because I think one of the things, particularly when you have a stalker, is taking back ownership, to yourself, having some control over the situation yourself. And a lot of states do have address confidentiality programs. I really recommend that folks look into those in their state if they feel that they are being stalked or are the victim of domestic abuse. It's very helpful in terms of concealing.
I want to stop it right here because Tracy Waldman says something really good. there is ways that you can have your personal information removed from these online databases and searches. It's not just for law enforcement like myself. You know, because of my profession, we were instructed through the NYPD to do that. And Phil, if you're here, if you want to come up and give some commentary, I'd be glad to have you. Just let me know. I'll send you the link. I'm only going to be live for maybe another 20 minutes. But there are ways for civilians to go to, you know, all of the different various search engines, like, you know, what is it? Anywho, and all the different things that are out there, Spokio, and there's just like a whole slew of them. And there's a way to go and apply to have your stuff, all of your personal information removed from it. I know Joey Brooklyn knows about it. I have done it myself. And it's another way to help peel the layers of the onion off and get to a place where people can't just readily look you up and find you. You know, I know that there are people that are out there. And listen, Matty Boy Sully, he brought up a good point. I get stalked every day by Diane B, my neighbor, right? But it's a good stalking. She's not somebody who's trying to hurt me. She's not someone who's trying to kill my wife and my family. You know, so again, this situation and this case just prompted me to come live and speak with you guys, even though it was late. You know, it was late at night, but it prompted me to come and give you guys just a little bit of to have a conversation about this, because this is something that is out there. I mean, we put ourselves out there. When you have a social media account, you post pictures, you post, we see this in almost all of the cases that we deal with. And listen, you know, you look at the Idaho 4, University of Idaho, the 4 students who were killed, they all had a social media presence. And it's alleged that Brian Kohlberger watched and looked at their social media. We know for sure that he looked at it and he tried to communicate. It's been alleged as well. He tried to communicate, but once the trial commences, we're going to find out. We're going to find out all about this stuff. Phil, I'll send it to you right now. I'm going to copy and paste it and put it in the chat. Well, you know what? Let me do it. Let me do it the other way. I'll send it to you direct. Give me a second, Mr. G. This is going to take 2 seconds. All right, let me let the rest of this play while I do this for Phil. I'm going to put this back because this is good info. I want to put this on the screen. I don't want you guys to look at me looking down at my phone. I'm going to send you the link, Phil. But this isn't. How many of us, by a show of hands, how many of us here are surprised that this 1 in 6 women and 1 in 17 men have experienced stalking? And, you know, like I wasn't privy to this information because this isn't something that, like for me, it's not that it doesn't concern me. It's just that I have not had a chance to look at these statistics. And these statistics are troubling, you know? So let me let this play while I send Phil.
Men have experienced stalking in their lifetimes. I know both you and I know what it's like to receive unwanted, persistent messages from strangers. So let's say that this does escalate to the point where you feel you need to notify police, but you still feel unsafe. Maybe you get a piece of paper, but you know ultimately that is not going to protect you. Is there any recourse here? What more can an individual do to stay safe?
So thank you for asking that question, because I think one of the things, particularly when you have a stalker, is taking back ownership, to yourself, having some control over the situation yourself. And a lot of states do have address confidentiality programs. I really recommend that folks look into those in their state if they feel that they are being stalked or are the victim of domestic abuse. It's very helpful in terms of concealing your address and making it very difficult for people to find. Another thing you can do is something as simple as changing your phone number to an unknown number. I think that's
the address. The address confidentiality route is really difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible to do, but it is it is time consuming. That's what I'll tell you. It's time consuming, folks, but it's worth it. I recommend it wholeheartedly. I recommend it wholeheartedly. Let me just send this link to Phil. He wants it emailed, so I'm going to just shoot him a quick email. All right, done. There you go. Hey, I wanted to also say too, you know, if you know somebody who's going through something like this and they reach out to you for help, you know, always refer them to their local law enforcement. And law enforcement is getting better at this. There used to be a time when you would go and report that you're getting harassed online, and the police would tell you, "Well, just get offline." Anybody here in the chat have ever or knows of somebody who has tried to report online harassment and police tell them, well, why are you live streaming? Why are you on Instagram? Why are you on Facebook? Why don't you just delete your, that's like almost like the standard answer of what it used to be. And now they are, some of the departments are getting better at it. And it looks like the Redmond Police Department took her seriously, and really went and made a report. You know, and it was more than just a report. They went to the courts, and I'm going to show you right now on screen. So this is, let me just take this off. Let me go full screen with this. So what I'm showing you here is criminal complaint. I don't know if you guys could see it up top, but this is a criminal complaint filed on March 2nd of 2023. I can't highlight it, but it's right where my cursor is. And it's stalking, a misdemeanor, filed on 2/27, probable cause, reviewed and found. And then telephone harassment, which we always refer to that as aggravated harassment. And that's, again, on 2/27, probable cause, reviewed and found. Telephone harassment. So he was charged. A criminal complaint was filed on March 2nd. 3 counts of these are misdemeanors, but still, he was about to be. The process was about to start happening. All right. Once I get the thumbs up from Phil, he's in the studio. He's here. If he's ready, I'll put him on. All right. Here we go. Phil, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good. Not too bad. So we have a doozy here in the state of Washington. Podcaster, 33 years old, husband, 35. This perp gets into the house at 2:00 Thursday night into Friday morning and shoots the husband in the doorway. The mother-in-law gets out, runs to the neighbor, calls 911. He shoots and kills the main subject, and then kills himself. So that's what we have going on.
Yeah. You know, I just jumped on. I saw the title of what it was, and I'm thinking podcast. Oh my God! I hope it was nobody that's in our world, so to speak. But either way, it's a horrible tragedy. I'm glad you brought up the Idaho case, Ronnie, because as you know, there's a great chance that Kohlberger stalked the victims in that case, at least one or perhaps several of those victims. Yeah. So again, this stuff is this is not kid games. You got to be careful, especially with anything online dating, online chat groups. There are people out there that are sick. They're deranged, and they troll the internet for victims, so to speak. And there's just so many different, you talk about pedophiles and these people that want to con people out of money, promising love from long distances. There's a lot of different things, but now this has been taken to another level. Obviously, a homicidal maniac went there, homicidal and suicidal, killed those people and then killed himself. Really tragic.
Crazy. And it just goes to show you that this is real life stuff. We're retired law enforcement professionals. We're legally able to carry weapons, right? But at the same time, when you have somebody that's in this mindset a piece of paper, or even a weapon, knowing that you're armed. Some of these people are obviously not thinking straight. So come into someone's home, and that's why I said don't just go out and get a firearm if you could legally obtain one. Be proficient with it. Know how to use it,
Absolutely.
because the last thing you want to do is have that there and have someone take it away from you, or you not be able to shoot and hit your target. I want to just put on the screen, Phil, quick, because I was showing this stuff before when you came into the studio. So you could see there was a criminal complaint. I'm going to put it full screen so the audience can see it a little bit better. Stalking, gross misdemeanor, probable cause reviewed on 2/27, reviewed and found. And then the telephone harassment ×2, probable cause reviewed and found. That reporting was good. And they just couldn't serve him with these arrest warrants. These are arrest warrants. The complaint filed, probable cause found, and I believe there was the next court date was on St. Patty's Day. But I want to just look at this real quick and focus on these voicemails. This is the decedent. This is the female. So it shows, unfortunately, it shows her number, but these are voicemails from December 5th going straight into 2023. And it's just boom, boom, boom. This guy just leaving voicemails for him. But here, in these documents, important dates, this is all of her documentation to the police. Verbally told this perp, I'm not even going to mention his name, to leave me alone, November 6th. November 8th, verbally told to leave me alone. Block number, November 10th. I mean, this just goes on and on. There's 25 lines here. Blocking his phone. He just kept getting different phone numbers. He called from a hotel in Nevada. He was given a warning by the police on January 16th of 2023. So this is just quite a bit of stuff. And he also told her that he was going to start a fire and burn a fire in the tree in front of her house. This thing just got really, really crazy. Police officers took a neck scarf as evidence. That was gifted. He started sending her gifts to her house on February 22nd, 2023. It was open with the police present. So she had the wherewithal to receive this item and not open it, call the police and open it in front of him. So pretty interesting, Phil, that she went those extra steps. And I think it's important that the ladies and the gentlemen that are out there, because this isn't just for us, this is for everybody. This can affect, as you see in the numbers, 1 in 6 women and 1 in 17 men. So this can affect anybody. And documenting, Phil, you're NYPD's, a grader, right? You're a grader. Let these folks know what it is and how important it is to document this stuff.
Very, very important, DutyRon. And, she took all the steps. She made all the reports. However, a lot of these crimes were either misdemeanor or possible low-level felonies, and it's a jurisdictional problem. If he's in another state, police are not going to go out of state on a misdemeanor, at least not in the NYPD. So again, they knew who he was. He was identified. Getting hands on him to arrest him was obviously an issue. They weren't able to enforce those warrants. I believe, like you said earlier, that he was out of state. So that could have been problematic. But again, if you start getting into a situation where someone is sending you numerous texts, numerous phone calls, immediately stop what you're doing, notify the police. You can notify, if it's a social media account, you can notify social media accounts. They have security people that will take the information and possibly block that person. On your cell phone, you can block numbers. If you have an iPhone, it's very simple. The minute they call you, you go into the phone, you put block the caller. They can't call you from that number again. There's a lot of different things you could do. And DutyRon, you talked about the cameras. In my home, I have 3 separate systems. I have an excessive amount of cameras, but for exactly what you said, I have every inch of my house and the surrounding area going up and down the block as well, cameras that can see pretty good. And I got high definition cameras. That's one of the things that you could do to prevent somebody from getting close to your home. You'll be alerted if you have a camera system that has, where someone moves, it'll send you a notification.
Yep.
Can't get a word offhand, but all of those things. But listen, when I was in the squad, we had many, many cases like this where we'd have ex-boyfriends that were harassing and on and on. on. Again, like you said, the piece of paper in hand, it's good to enforce an arrest. If you call 911 and he's still there, we want him arrested. Yes, he violated the order. But if you have a homicidal maniac, that piece of paper is not going to be much help.
Right. And I'm glad you just said that, Phil, because what I'm about to read, I'm going to go full screen again for the advantage of the audience. This is her statement to the police. The friendship turned sinister and resulted in her begging him to leave her alone. Hauntingly, in a petition filed just last month, the victim pleaded. She pleaded. He had bursts of anger and is completely delusional. This is her statement. The delusions make me fear for my life and the lives of my loved ones. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just reading this for the first time because I haven't read this. I just saw the report and I saved it. The victim told police how he'd show up at their home uninvited, delivering flowers, and even once promising to send a musical band to play outside. He contacted my husband, and he continues to do so. He has come to my home and neighborhood several times, staying at local inns around my neighborhood. He's parked down my street in hopes of seeing me. I am suffering a deep-seated fear for my safety. She included all the call logs that I showed up above, which demonstrated how frequently he phoned her and left messages and told the police that he would sometimes park down the street in hopes of catching just a glimpse of her. Disturbingly, he would stay at local inns near the property. So this guy traveled from Texas, Bill, to Washington. And that's not a small little run. I mean, I know he's an over-the-road trucker, but just
totally obsessed, to say the least. Totally obsessed.
Yeah. So in this reporting here, and again, there's a lot of pictures and videos, and I'll link all this stuff down below in the description. But I mean, there's a whole gallery of photos here. I'm just going to take a peek at them because I'm looking at these for the first time. We see the Washington State Police Crime Lab is here. These are some of the men and women who have actually helped in the with Idaho with Pullman. Sure. Yeah. So the Washington State Crime Lab, you see they're on the scene here. And even though it's a double homicide with a suicide attached to it, they listed as three people dead. They're still out there taking pictures, scanning, doing 3D laser scans and so forth. Because you never know, and you could talk to this as an investigator. You never know if there's somebody else, a code D, and when I say code D, I mean meaning a second person that he might have been acting in concert with. So they're always going to do this to dot their I's and cross their T's. Isn't that correct, Phil?
Absolutely. And that laser apparatus that they use takes a 360-degree angle view of everything. You could see every piece of what's on the scene. That gives the investigators to go back in time and look and say, okay, what was there on the day in question? It really, really is a great piece of, forensic equipment for crime scenes. I think it's very, very helpful in a lot of these cases. And I think that what's going on in the world today, every state, every city should have a good crime scene team. Of course, really, a lot of the cases are solved just based on what they collect at crime scenes a lot of times, or are able to tie the perpetrator to the crime. So very, very important. They always were in my time on the job, but even more so today with the higher technology equipment that they carry.
Absolutely. And, Ed and I covered that extensively. We had the representative from Faro Technologies with the 3D laser scanning. It is a unbelievable technology, and it's used across the United States. But let me just show you some of the pictures of the inside of this home. It's a beautiful home. It was reported that it's a $1.6 million home, and he entered through a back window into a bedroom. Again, here's all the voicemails and the call logs. This page 11 of 13, it really goes into details. I didn't want to just read all of this stuff out there, but if you guys are interested in seeing or reading this, I'll link this down below in the description so you guys can go over and check it out and read it. But yeah, Phil, again, there's people in the chat saying, I'm thinking of going radio silent. I wouldn't even find fault in it. I'm not saying people should be paranoid, but you need to tighten your friendships online, because if someone just contacts you out of nowhere, and even if you do have some type of engagement with that person, you just never know what, where they're coming from, what their mental state is. And we could see clearly here, Phil, that she reported his mental state was not good. And that's
she quoted as him being delusional. I think that that really says something. And you could really get a picture. You can get a profile of what she was trying to explain there. She used a lot of description of what she was in fear of, and basing, she was putting words in there that made you understand why she was in fear. So, I mean, listen, it sounds like she dotted the I's and crossed the T's, what she could do. It's just unfortunate. Initially, I was thinking maybe it could have been a religious or a cultural thing, but it sounds like it was real an obsession thing. I don't think it was anything like that. When I heard that it was Iranian, I thought perhaps maybe it was some cultural reason why he was targeting her. But this sounds like a pure obsessed individual that just wanted to, either have some type of relationship with this woman, and since he was he was rebuffed, it sounds like he just went all in, and he went really homicidal on her.
And the sad part is that she definitely documented it extensively. She said in her own words, that was her statement to the police, that she's in fear for her life and her loved ones. And what happens in a very short period of time after that? She's murdered, he's murdered, and the mother-in-law, thank God, or her mother, I'm not sure if it's her mother or his mother, she was able to escape and get out and call 911. I got one more piece, Phil, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And I want to just play this quickly because this is from local from Seattle. And I like to get local reporting because a lot of times they're on it pretty good.
Thank you. As you mentioned off the top, we're following some breaking news out of Redmond this morning where 3 people are dead in an apparent stalking incident.
Fox 13's China Green is there. And China, what can you tell us about this case?
Well, I can tell you this is an absolutely tragic morning for anyone involved, for everyone here who have kind of got the rundown of what happened here this morning. But again, it has been confirmed that 3 people died here this morning. So officers were dispatched to this house here behind me, just past the tape you could see at around 2 a.m. This is located on 89th Street in Redmond. We're told the woman who called 911 called from a neighbor's house, said this was a stalker situation, like you said. Now we're told 4 shots were fired. When officers arrived, they found a 35-year-old man, the husband of the household, laying in the front yard there, who had been shot in the chest. They tried to save his life. He ultimately died. When officers got inside the home, they found his 33-year-old wife and the 38-year-old suspect, who were both dead from gunshot wounds. Redmond PD tells us that suspect broke into the home, broke into a window to get in. We're told the suspect did all the shooting here. So he shot the husband, shot the wife who he'd been stalking, and then turned the gun on himself. Now, the man had been stalking the victim for some time now, from what we have been told. However, investigators were not able to. She did file a no contract restraining order against him. However, investigators had yet to serve him that, because we were told that he was a truck driver and he was just always out of the area. But the woman who escaped here that we mentioned here earlier today, we're told that it was the mother of the wife who was killed here. Now, there was some sort of altercation between her and the suspect, who ultimately shot himself. But again, this is an absolutely tragic morning here. And this is going to be a long investigation as they try to figure out.
So there you have it. Again, our advice here is, make sure your home is secure. Make sure you have as much as you can afford video, audio cameras. Like, not only do I have video, but I also have audio, and I even have a camera mounted on top of the back part of my property that looks at the back part of my house, from the edge of my property looking back. So if someone is working on trying to get into the back, not only will those cameras that are at the back perimeter of my home, I have another one that looks at it from the backyard. So I really went over the top, but I did that in light of my career and some of the bad people that we've arrested over our times, Phil. And I know that you're super vigilant when it comes to safety with your family. Yeah. So listen, guys and girls, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon here, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace and all of my great friends like Phil Grimaldi from Police Off the Cuff. And if you're not subscribed over there, it's one of my recommended channels. So if you go to my channel list of recommended channels, you could go over and see Phil and Bill at Police Off the Cuff. So you can't go wrong there, because I know that these guys may eventually speak about this. They're going to give safety tips, as we do periodically. But I wanted to let you know, too, when we do stories like this, YouTube demonetizes. I checked while Phil was talking and doing, giving you guys some good information. And I checked, and this thing already, YouTube takes it upon themselves to say, well, we don't really like that you're talking about this, so we're going to demonetize it. Like I did a special on the sentencing of Angela Polina last night. YouTube demonetized it. I challenged it, and they said no, it's not good. So it's not going to stop me from doing this stuff, because I want to help try to keep everybody educated and safe. I know, Phil, you feel the same way, but that's what they do. That's what YouTube does. They want everything to be a bed of roses. But when you report on something like this and you give good advice out to your subscribers and your friends, they somehow feel that it's not good for the platform. I don't get it, but it is what it is.
A lot to be said about that, Ronnie, with YouTube, but I don't want to go too far into it.
Exactly. We could do a whole show on that, and I plan to maybe do something on that. But yeah, so this is a tragic case, and these stalker incidents happen across the country. These aren't just isolated, pocketed incidents. Thank God the murders are isolated incidents, but people are stalked and harassed online every single day, every waking minute of every day, because I know people send me messages, help me, this and this is happening to me. I get it all the time. So there are many steps that you could take to protect yourself, but again, limiting your contacts and the people that I feel that one of the biggest mistakes, especially a woman can make, is meeting somebody from online. Because that meet is what sets some people off and puts them into that next level. Having the communication online and never actually seeing the person, that too can develop it as well. But when you get that in-person meet, that's some of the most dangerous times to have a situation like this cultivate. So
Ronnie, we had an off-duty police officer killed last month that went to meet someone he met online on Facebook Marketplace to buy a vehicle, and the perpetrator went to rob him and eventually shot him and killed him. So again, it doesn't get more dangerous than that. Ronnie, you brought up a lot of good tips tonight, safety tips about personal safety with Mace. They have these things that are personal alarms. They have something that'll shoot dye out on a perpetrator. Lighting around your house is also very good. But when I go to bed at night, I keep my key fob with me from my car. My car's parked in front of my home. That little red button, you hit that, that's a panic alarm. It'll set off the headlights and the horn on your vehicle. Now, what that may do is that may scare off an intruder. It also will alert if you call 911. The police are rolling up the block. They're going to know exactly where to go. They won't have to look for the address. So again, this is right next to me when I go to bed at night, my key fob for my car. And if God forbid somebody's trying to break into my home, I'm hitting that panic button, and then I'm taking some other steps, obviously. But just one other thing in the safety protocols that you can enlist to keep yourself and your family safe.
Yeah, those are great ideas, Bill. Anything that's going to make noise is going to potentially spook somebody off. And I always refer to it as like, remember we used to have those whistles when I came on the job. I know when you did, that was part of our package. You had to have that whistle. That a woman or anybody could put a whistle right around their neck, or they could keep it in their pocket, keep it in their purse, and you could take that thing out and blow it at any time. So these are just small tidbits of tips. I think that Ed Wallace's boots back on the ground in the United States. He's home and sleeping right now. He just had 29 hours of flight, but I think him and I are going to get together and we're going to do a safety tip for men and women, and we'll just do it. I might make it for the members first, and then we'll put it out publicly after that. but I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to do like a members only live for the membership, and then we'll take that same video and then put it out publicly to everybody. So I think it will be great.
Sounds like a great idea, Ronnie.
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, put hashtag Phil, hashtag DutyRon in the chat, or leave it down below in the comment section after this video is over. Phil, you got like 5 minutes? I want to just pull the chat and see if anybody's got any questions.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's some people in the chat saying great little tidbits and tips there. If you can arm yourself and get trained, Tony D from EquiSearch, absolutely. I said that. Some people are just not into the gun. So if you can't have a gun, the pepper spray, mace, OC spray, there's all different kinds that may or may not be legal. Check your state and your local code. But that works well, but don't just get the mace and not learn and know how to use it. Remember, Phil, when we would get the different types of mace, we would have to go and do the little bit at the range where you spray the fake one at the dummy. So you got to know where to point that stuff. It's not something like people right away say, oh, you shoot right straight for the eyes. When we were trained in it, it was here at the chest and the largest part of the body, just how we shoot center mass, hit them in the chest, and it just vapes right. The vapes just go right up into the face. Spraying in the face is a old wives' tale. Don't crucify me for saying old wives' tale, ladies, but that's what it is, And so if you get mace, you better darn know how to use it, because you want to use it and it be effective. You don't want to use it and have it not work. So
a lot of mace will have a little bit of a direction inside a packet. It'll tell you to aim center mass at the person. Now, obviously, if someone grabs you, you're in a struggle, you're going to try and do the best you can. But again, if you train for it, maybe your instincts will take over and you'll do the right thing. Any type of hand-to-hand combat, karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, that's always good if you're grabbed from behind on the street or something of that nature. So listen, you have to be able to fight. You have to have some type of, whether it be a firearm, mace. Ron, I saw something recently. It's about the size of a pack of gum, and it's like a keychain. And if you just pull it, it emits like a very, very high decibel sound. Most of the time, it'll scare off. And I think it even has a strobe on it. It'll scare off a person that's trying to do harm. And again, it'll bring attention to you. If you're in a parking lot or something where it's dark, that sound is going to go off. The light will be flashing. Another personal safety device.
Absolutely. That's great idea and great advice. Anything that's going to make noise to get attention to you. And then, make sure your home on the outside is well lit. So many people, I go to visit so many friends, and they have the whole side of their house black, dark.
Oh, good.
You got to have lights on. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money and get some outdoor LED lighting. Light it up like a Christmas tree. More lights, the better. I never shut my front light out like some people have theirs on a timer to save energy or save money. I keep my house lit up the whole night. And if somebody walks through the sides of my house or the back, I have that security lighting that's by motion, and it'll go on and it will light up the place like it's like daytime. So these are very, very important things. Handguns and self-defense, or even a long rifle inside a lot of homes. If you cannot carry handguns, and there's strong handgun laws like in New York and California, you could still have a long gun in your home. So that's another option as well. Kimberly Culp, she said something really great. I have a Great Dane at home. Dogs are some of the best home defense, because why? They're going to make noise. Some of them might be the biggest, most, God-fearing animals, and they'll go up to a bad guy and lick them. But if they start barking, then it's going to scare them, or just their presence being there. Perps and bad guys don't like dogs, as we know.
Absolutely, 100%. I have a dog that's not that big. He's about 25 pounds, but he's a great watchdog. And for me, he's in the center of the house. He's got the front door and the back door covered at all times at night when we're asleep. So if I hear him barking, I'm alerted. That's what I'm looking for in a dog. But again, a big German Shepherd, a Doberman, any type of dog like that, somebody knocks on your door, they hear that, they're taking off. They're not going to come in.
Right. Exactly. So we didn't get a lot of questions because I did look at the chat, but I think that we answered most of the questions that the folks had. I want to say thank you to anybody and everyone who has given super chats, because again, YouTube just puts the kibosh on these kind of live streams. So to all the super chatters, thank you for that. And if you watch the replays, let the ads play. That helps. It's a free way to support, not only here. If you're watching Police Off the Cuff, let those ads play, walk away from the device, come back. And so that's a great way to support your favorite content creators. And Phil and Bill, they do a great job with keeping you guys up to date on all the things behind the scenes and everything in between when it comes to police procedure and so forth. So thank you, Phil, for joining me tonight. I know you're a late night guy like me. On the weekends I stay up a little late, so I was, when I saw you in the chat, I was like, oh, that would be great. Let's get him on up here. So it's always a
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me, Ronnie. I really appreciate it. I just want to say condolences to those families, those two people that were killed, and prayers for them. And, it's just such a sad thing because it looked like this woman was doing everything that she could possibly do, and she still wound up being murdered. It's terrible.
Very sad. Very, very sad. And it's just also a sad reminder that you can pretty much check off all the boxes that you're supposed to do, and you could still become a victim. We never know what is in the cards for any of us. But all we can say is that it's important to stay vigilant, stay hypersensitive to your surroundings. I mean, these folks were sleeping. It's in the middle of the night. There's really not much that you could do there. But when you are outside, always keep that peripheral vision going. Do not bury your head in a phone if you're out and about. Keep your head on a swivel. Kimberly, thank you for that $10 super chat. Be always aware of your surroundings. When I go live from inside my car on the lunchtime, I'm in my parking lot sometimes, or I'm at the post office. People are around me, and everybody sees. I'm always looking around. I'm looking at the people who are walking by me, because I never like to keep and bury my head into something that I'm doing. I want to be paying attention, because bad guys and girls look for people who aren't paying attention. So just keep that in mind. Listen, as I always like to end these things, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially these two victims. We send them and their families strength, prayers, and positive vibes. We're sending out all of our best to the investigators and the EMS and all of the neighbors and folks in that community who are going to be visibly shaken. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks
Peace.
again, Ronnie. Stay safe.
Thanks, Phil.